Okay, we're going to start with the grouping page. It's page 36 on this packet. The instructions tell us to shade and label 2/8 and 1/4 on each model. So 2/8 on this model looks like this, and 1/4 on this model looks like this. When we're grouping, we can show equivalent fractions. If we're going from a larger to a smaller, we would partition, but if we're going from a smaller to a larger piece, we can use grouping. And how we do that is, this is in fourths, so we can show this in fourths as well. We have grouped 2 of the 8ths together to make 1/4. On the second part, where we have fraction strips, we're going to shade the same amount. So if we find 2/8, that's the bottom row, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. So I'm going to shade 2/8, which is 1, 2. And I'm also going to shade 1/4. My fourths are found right here, so I'm going to shade one of those. And we can show grouping. I'm going to change colors to show the grouping. Here's a 4th, and a 4th, and a 4th, a 4th. So we can group our 8ths into 4ths as well. And we can see that 2/8 is equal to 1/4. And they both cover the same amount of the whole. The holes are the same size. We're going to do the same thing for the number line. First we have to label our number lines. And we'll start with 8ths at the top. This is 1/8. And then we're going to shade 2/8. Goes to right here. Then we're going to do the 4ths at the bottom. We know that 2/8 and 1/4 are the same, so I can group together 8ths to make 4ths. So we need to label them as well. So this is 1/4 at this line, 2/4 at this line, 3/4, and 4/4, which is the same as the whole. And then we're going to shade the equivalent fraction. So our groups of 8ths show 4ths as well. And the answer at the bottom, where we see a fill-in-the-blank question or statement, the fractions 2/8 and 1/4 are equivalent because they cover the same amount of the same size whole. Okay, on page 2, the grouping partner practice, it's the same idea, just with different fractions. I'm going to go pretty quickly on this, so if you need to pause and catch up, you can do that. So 2/6 is on this side, and 1/3 is on this side. And I can show the groups. Here's 1/3, here's another third, and another third. And then I can group 2 of the 6ths together. And I can show that they are equal. They are covering the same amount. Alright, we're going to do the same thing with the bottom. We're going to find the 6th, which is this line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. Shading 2 of them. And 1/3, here's my 3 equal parts, shading 1 of them. I can see that they're equivalent with my eyes. I'm going to group my 6ths, and we can see how they become thirds. I'm also going to go down to the number line and show the same thing. So I'm going to label my thirds. Or I'll do my 6ths first, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. So this is 6/6, which is the same as a whole. we're going to shade 2/6, and then we're going to show our thirds, grouping our sixths together. I can see my thirds. And I need to label my thirds. This whole section to this line right here is 1/3. This to this line is 2/3. And this is, 3/3, which is the same as a whole. And from here to here is shaded, and they are equivalent fractions. I notice that that 2/6 and 1/3 represent the same amount because they cover the same amount of the same size hole. On the third page, we're going to go from a larger piece to a smaller piece and show partitioning. So we're going to start by shading and labeling 3/4. And shading 6/8. Now before we changed our smaller groups into fourths, but this time we're going to change our fourths into smaller groups. So I can see over here that if I had fourths, each fourth is partitioned again down the middle. So my fourths over here need to be partitioned like so. And basically it's an X. And I've partitioned to show that 6/8 and 3/4 are the same. We're going to do that down here with our fraction strips. I'm going to find my fourths, which are right here. And I'm going to shade 3/4. And my eighths, I need to shade 6 of my eighths. You can see they're equivalent because they end at the same point of the hole. And I can prove it by partitioning my fourths into eighths. So if I look here, I can see all of my all of my eighths. And basically what I want to do is just bring the lines up to partition the fourths into eighths. And I can see it like this. That one's already there. I can do the same thing on the number line. I'm going to start with 3/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is the same as a whole, 3/4 all the way to this line. And then I need to partition this into eighths. So I know that for every fourth, I'm going to partition it in half of a fourth. So for instance, for this fourth, this is going to be 2/8 right here. So half of a fourth would be an eighth. And I'm going to shade 6/8. So keep changing colors. And I can see that they are equivalent. I've partitioned my fourths into eighths. They're equivalent because they cover the same amount of the same size hole. On this next paper, in a flash, it's going to be done, and I just want you to check your own. Ta-da! Here is the finished product. of the last partner practice page. Pause if you need to